The Galactic Council thought they were being merciful. Hey, what a joke that turned out to be. You see, when you're dealing with a species that literally walked out of a death world covered in predators, maybe just maybe cutting off their dominant hand isn't the brilliant diplomatic solution you think it is. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you the full picture of how spectacularly we underestimated one particular human named Vera Kingston. It started 3 months ago during what we pompously called the Trade Dispute Resolution. The humans had been pushing for better mining rights on Kepler 442 billion, and honestly their arguments were solid. Too solid for the hegemony's liking. The big four species, yes, Vorthak, the Zilani, the Keth and the Braxians, had been splitting those mineral profits for decades. The last thing we wanted was some upstart mammal species demanding their fair share. So we did what any civilized galactic power would do. We invited their lead negotiator to a formal hearing, then rigged the entire process. Vera Kingston walked into that council chamber like she owned the place. And why shouldn't she? She'd spent 15 years climbing the ranks of human diplomacy, earned 3 degrees in xenopolitics, and spoke 17 different galactic languages fluently. The woman was a walking testament to human tenacity. She stood barely 5 feet tall, tiny by Vorthak standards, with steel-grey hair, pulled back in what humans call a power bun. Her dark eyes missed nothing as she surveyed the chamber, taking in each council member with the kind of calculating stare that should have warned us. Should have. Honorable Council, she began, her voice carrying that peculiar human quality of sounding respectful, while simultaneously suggesting you're all idiots. I come before you today seeking justice for the systematic exclusion of humanity from profitable mining operations on Kepler 442 billion. Council leader Thax 9 leaned forward on his massive haunches, his forearms crossed in what we considered a gesture of authority. The mining rights were established long before your species achieved faster-than-light travel, Ambassador Kingston. Surely you understand the principle of prior claim. Oh, the delicious irony. Prior claim. As if the Keth hadn't literally stolen that system from the Zelrani 50 years earlier. Vera's smile could have frozen liquid nitrogen. Of course, Council leader. I also understand the principle of technological contribution. The new extraction methods my people have developed could increase yield by 400%. But apparently, sharing innovation isn't as valued as maintaining traditional partnerships. Even I felt that one, and I was just a mid-level observer taking notes for my superior. The woman had basically called our entire system corrupt without saying the word directly. That's when Braxian Councillor Creeks made his first mistake. He laughed. Not the polite chuckle of diplomatic amusement, but a full-throated guffaw that echoed through the chamber like thunder. Innovation. Creeks wheezed, his scaled hide rippling with mirth. From a species that only discovered fire 200,000 years ago. Please, Ambassador, leave the real work to civilizations that were building starships when your ancestors were still throwing rocks at each other. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Vera's posture didn't change. She remained perfectly composed, but something shifted in those dark eyes. Something dangerous. I see, she said quietly. So this is about species superiority, not economics. It's about reality, snapped Zelani Councillor Ves Prime, her crystalline form chiming with agitation. Humans are newcomers. Unproven. Your emotional volatility alone makes you unsuitable for major resource management. Emotional volatility. Another brilliant observation from beings who'd started 3 wars in the last century over territorial disputes. Vera nodded slowly, as if absorbing this wisdom. Emotional volatility. Yes, I can see how that would be concerning. Tell me, how many wars has humanity started since joining the galactic community? Silence. None, she continued. How many have we participated in? More silence. 7. All defensive. All protecting smaller species from aggression by, let me check my notes, oh yes, species currently represented on this council. Thax 9's tail lashed irritably. Ancient history, Ambassador. We're here to discuss mining rights, not relitigate past conflicts. Of course. My apologies for being emotional. The way she said that word made it sound like a blade being drawn. Let's focus on the present. The present where you've denied humanity fair representation. The present where you've rejected our technological contributions. The present where you're about to tell me that despite our legitimate claims, our proven capabilities, and our peaceful intentions. The answer is still no. The council members exchanged glances. They hadn't expected her to cut straight to the heart of it. Keth Councillor Zain Ra spoke for the first time, his mechanical voice grinding with barely concealed contempt. The answer, Ambassador Kingston, is that humanity may submit a formal application for consideration. In 50 years, when your species has proven its stability, 50 years. For a species with an average lifespan of 80 years, that was effectively never. Vera stood quietly for a long moment, hands clasped behind her back. When she spoke again, her voice was so calm it sent chills down my chitinous spine. I see. And if I were to object to this decision? Creeks leaned forward, his predatory grin revealing rows of razor teeth. Then you would discover why the Braxian Empire has maintained peace in this sector for 3 centuries. It was a threat, not even a subtle one. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of the environmental systems. Vera smiled. Actually smiled. Councillor Creeks, are you threatening me? I'm explaining consequences, Ambassador. Your species has a habit of overreacting when you don't get your way. That's when she laughed. Not the bitter laugh of defeat or the nervous giggle of fear, but genuine amusement. It was unsettling in a way I couldn't quite define. Overreacting, she repeated. That's fascinating. Because from my perspective, this entire charade has been quite an underreaction on humanity's part. Thax 9 slammed one massive fist on his podium. Enough. The council has spoken. The decision stands. Does it? Vera's voice cut through the chamber like a laser. Because I have one more thing to present to this august body. She reached into her diplomatic case and withdrew a data pad. The guards tensed as if a 5-foot-tall diplomat posed any physical threat to beings twice her size. I have here documentation proving that the Kepler 442 billion system was never legally claimed by any council species. I have shipping manifests showing systematic price manipulation of rare minerals. I have communication logs detailing bribes paid to council members to maintain exclusive mining rights. The silence that followed was deafening. Furthermore, she continued, I have evidence that 3 of the 4 council species have been illegally harvesting resources from neutral systems, in direct violation of the Galactic Accords. Now that got their attention, sudden interest replaced boredom on every alien face in the chamber. Vera held up the data pad. All of this information has been compiled, verified, and prepared for transmission to the Galactic Justice Tribunal. Unless, of course, we can reach a more equitable arrangement regarding humanity's rightful place in this council's mining operations. For a moment I thought she'd actually done it. The evidence was damning enough to bring down half the council leadership. The humans had clearly been planning this for months, maybe years. Then Creeks made his second mistake. Give me that data pad, human. It wasn't a request. Vera's grip tightened on the device. I think not, Councillor. This information belongs to humanity, and it will be presented to the proper authorities through official channels. Creeks rose to his full height, nearly 8 feet of scaled muscle and barely contained violence. I said, give it to me. And I said no. The standoff stretched for heartbeats that felt like hours. Then Creeks nodded to his guards. Take it from her. 2 Braxian soldiers moved forward. Vera backed away, clutching the datapad to her chest. This is a diplomatic hearing, she shouted. I have immunity. Immunity applies to persons, Thax 9 rumbled, not to stolen property. Stolen property. They were actually going to justify this theft by claiming the evidence had been obtained illegally. The first guard reached Vera and grabbed for the datapad. She twisted away, surprisingly quick for such a small being. Don't touch me, she warned. The second guard flanked her, and she spun to face him. In that moment of distraction, the first soldier lunged forward and seized her left wrist. The datapad went flying, clattering across the chamber floor. Got it. Crick started forward to claim his prize. That's when Vera did something that still gives me nightmares. She grabbed the Braxian soldier's weapon with her free hand. Now, Braxian sidearms aren't designed for human physiology. They're built for beings with twice the grip strength and 3 times the hand size. But somehow this tiny diplomat managed to activate the weapon's energy blade. The brilliant blue beam hummed to life, and suddenly everyone in the chamber was backing away. "Release me," Vera said quietly, "or I start cutting." The soldier holding her wrist hesitated. Braxians are natural predators, but they're also intelligent enough to recognize when prey has suddenly become dangerous. That hesitation lasted exactly 3 seconds. Creaks bellowed an order I couldn't understand, and the second guard struck Vera from behind with a neural disruptor. She collapsed like a puppet with cut strings, the energy blade flickering out as the weapon clattered away. But the damage was done. A diplomat had threatened council members with violence. In their twisted logic, this justified everything that followed. "Seize her," Thax 9 commanded. "She has committed assault against council security." What followed was a mockery of justice that made the rigged hearing look fair by comparison. They dragged the unconscious human to a judgment chamber, appointed themselves as judge and jury, and pronounced her guilty of threatening galactic peace. The sentence was delivered with ceremonial gravity. For the crime of threatening violence against lawful authority, the defendant shall lose the hand that drew the weapon, as is traditional punishment for such offences. Traditional punishment, as if there was some ancient galactic law requiring mutilation as justice. I watched from the observation deck as they secured Vera to a restraint platform. She'd regained consciousness but said nothing, just stared at her captors with those dark, calculating eyes. The medical droid approached with its surgical laser, and I found myself hoping she would scream or beg, or show some sign of the emotional volatility they kept accusing her species of possessing. She didn't. Vera Kingston watched them cut off her left hand, her dominant hand, with the same calm expression she'd worn during the diplomatic hearing. The only sound she made was a sharp intake of breath when the laser cauterized the wound. When it was over, Thax 9 leaned down to address her directly. "Let this be a lesson to humanity, Ambassador. There are consequences for threatening your betters." Vera looked up at him, and for just a moment I saw something in her eyes that made my blood freeze. Not pain, not defeat, not even anger. Promise. "Yes," she said quietly, "there are." They released her an hour later with a medical kit and a one-way transport ticket back to human space. The datapad was, naturally, declared classified and sealed away in council archives. As I watched her small figure board the transport ship, moving awkwardly with her bandaged stump, I felt a twinge of something that might have been guilt. We'd just mutilated a diplomat for the crime of doing her job too well. But that feeling passed quickly. After all, humans were emotional creatures. She'd probably file a complaint, make some speeches, and eventually accept that this was how galactic politics worked. 3 months passed. The incident was largely forgotten, relegated to a footnote in diplomatic records. The council resumed its profitable mining operations, and life continued as normal. Then the reports started coming in. First, a Braxian cargo vessel disappeared near the outer rim. Pirates, everyone assumed. It happened occasionally. A week later, a Keth scientific station went dark. Technical malfunction, probably. When a Zilani diplomatic convoy vanished without a trace, people began to pay attention. The attacks, because that's what they obviously were, followed a pattern. Single ships or small installations, always belonging to one of the 4 council species, always in remote locations where help couldn't arrive quickly. But here's the interesting part: the crews weren't killed. They were found days later, alive but thoroughly humiliated, stripped of their cargo and left with only basic life support. Each group reported the same thing: their attacker was a single human female, wearing black armor and wielding weapons that shouldn't have existed. The descriptions were consistent enough to be disturbing: medium height, grey hair, missing left hand. And always she identified herself the same way. "I am Vera Kingston. You took my hand. I've come to collect payment." The council tried to dismiss these reports as hysteria or misidentification. After all, how could one maimed human be terrorizing 3 major galactic powers? Then she hit the Kepler 442 billion mining station, not the orbital platforms or the support ships, the main planetary facility, the heart of the entire operation. She walked through their security like it was made of paper, disabled their communications, and systematically destroyed every piece of mining equipment on the planet. Millions of credits in damage, accomplished in less than 6 hours. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what she left behind. In the facility's main conference room, written in Braxian script across the wall in what forensics later identified as industrial lubricant, was a simple message: "This is what an overreaction looks like, or to follow." And at the bottom, just to make sure everyone understood, she'd signed it with a handprint. A left handprint pressed in that same lubricant. The handprint of a hand she no longer possessed. That's when the council realized they might have made a mistake. A big one. The emergency council session was called at 03:00 Standard Time. Not exactly the hour for clear thinking, but panic has a way of disrupting sleep schedules. I found myself back in that same chamber where this whole mess started, watching 4 of the galaxy's most powerful beings try to figure out how one mutilated human had brought their entire operation to its knees. 17 facilities destroyed, Zilani Councillor Ves Prime chimed, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. That 43 cargo ships disabled, 200 million credits in losses, and that's just this week. Keth Councillor Zain Ra's mechanical voice ground out statistics like a malfunctioning computer. Current pattern analysis suggests she will target the hegemony shipyards next. If successful, construction delays will cost us. "I don't care about the money." Crix roared, his scaled hide flushed with rage. "This human is making us look like fools. Every species in the galaxy is laughing at us." Oh, they were doing more than laughing. The smaller civilizations were starting to whisper about joining humanity's cause. Nothing spreads rebellion quite like watching the mighty brought low by someone they wronged. Thax 9 slammed his fist down with enough force to crack the podium. "How is this possible? She's one being. One injured being." That's when Intelligence Director Yax 5 stepped forward with his report. Poor Yax looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, which was probably accurate given the circumstances. "Council leaders, we've compiled data on Ambassador Kingston's activities since her departure from Council space. The information is concerning. Just tell us." Crix snapped. Yax activated his holographic display, showing a timeline of events that made my stomach sink. Upon returning to human space, Kingston submitted her resignation from the diplomatic corps. She then disappeared for approximately 6 weeks. During this time, she visited several classified human military facilities. The hologram shifted, showing security footage of Vera entering what looked like a high-tech laboratory. She still wore the medical bandages from her amputation, but her posture was different, straighter, more purposeful. "The humans have been developing something they call adaptive prosthetics," Yax continued. "Technology originally designed for soldiers injured in combat. The devices interface directly with the nervous system and can accept various tool attachments." A chill ran down my spine as the implications sank in. "She replaced her hand with a weapon," Ves Prime whispered. "Multiple weapons," Yax corrected grimly. "Plasma cutter, molecular saw, energy shield generator, hacking interface, and something they're calling a universal key that can override most standard security systems." The footage showed Vera's transformation from diplomat to something else entirely. The grey-haired woman who'd pleaded for justice had been replaced by a figure in sleek black armor, her missing hand now a sophisticated mechanical appendage that could shift between tools with liquid smoothness. "But how is she finding our ships?" Zain Ra demanded. "Our security protocols were designed by species who don't understand human intelligence gathering," Yax interrupted. "While we focused on preventing military infiltration, they've been collecting commercial data for decades. Shipping schedules, crew rotations, supply routes, all publicly available information that becomes dangerous when properly analyzed." Crix bared his teeth. "You're telling me she's using our own record-keeping against us?" "More than that, Counselor. She's recruiting." The hologram changed again, showing grainy surveillance footage from various space stations. Vera could be seen meeting with beings from dozens of different species, many of them former employees of Council operations who'd been laid off, cheated or otherwise mistreated. "She's building a network," Yax explained. "Disgruntled workers, independent contractors, freelance pilots, people with grudges against the Council who suddenly find themselves working for someone with the resources and motivation to act on those grievances." Thax 9's tail lashed violently. "Resources? She's a mutilated exile. What resources could she possibly have?" Yax's next revelation made the temperature in the room seem to drop by several degrees. The datapad she brought to the original hearing. It wasn't just evidence of Council corruption. It contained detailed financial records of every illegal operation we've run for the past 50 years. She's been using that information to seize our hidden assets. Silence. Silence. "How much?" Vess Prime asked quietly. "Conservative estimate, 2 billion credits. She's funding her entire operation with money we thought was safely hidden in untraceable accounts. The mathematical beauty of it was almost artistic. Vera had turned their own crimes into the weapon that would destroy them." "This ends now," Crix growled, rising to his full imposing height. "Deploy the fleet. I want her hunted down and eliminated." "That might prove difficult, Counselor." Yax's next images showed the wreckage of 3 Braxian patrol ships floating dead in space. The hulls had been cut open with surgical precision, the crews left alive but thoroughly humiliated. "She's not just avoiding our military forces," Yax continued. "She's hunting them." 7 patrol ships destroyed in the last month. 43 crew members captured and released with the same message carved into their armor. "Tell the Council I'm coming home." Coming home. Back to Council space. Back to finish what she'd started. "Double the security on all Council facilities," Thax 9 ordered. "Triple it. Post guards on every." The lights went out. Emergency illumination flickered on a moment later, bathing the chamber in an eerie red glow. But in that brief moment of darkness, something had changed. A figure stood in the center of the chamber. Black armor gleamed in the emergency lighting, and where a left hand should have been, metal fingers flexed with mechanical precision. Vera Kingston had come home. "Hello, Council," she said pleasantly, as if she'd simply arrived for another diplomatic hearing. "Miss me?" The guards reached for their weapons, but stopped when they realized what was in her right hand. Not a gun or a blade, but something far more dangerous in this enclosed space, a thermal detonator. Now, Vera continued, her voice carrying that same calm authority I remembered from 3 months ago. "Let's not do anything hasty. We have so much to discuss." Crix found his voice first. "How did you get in here? This facility is impregnable." Vera's laugh was cold as void space. "Impregnable? I walked through your front door, Counselor. Your security chief was very helpful once I explained the situation to him." She gestured toward the observation deck, where I suddenly noticed a figure slumped in one of the chairs. Security Chief Rax 3, unconscious but apparently unharmed. "Don't worry, he's just sleeping. Unlike some beings in this room, I don't believe in unnecessary violence." The emphasis she placed on unnecessary made it clear that she considered some violence very necessary indeed. Thax 9's massive form shifted nervously. What do you want, Kingston? Money? We can negotiate. Negotiate? Vera's prosthetic hand reconfigured itself into something that looked suspiciously like an energy weapon. Like we negotiated 3 months ago. When you cut off my hand for the crime of doing my job. That was justice under galactic law. Was it? Vera began walking slowly around the chamber, forcing the council members to turn to keep her in sight. Because I've spent the last 3 months studying galactic law very carefully. Did you know there's no legal precedent for maiming diplomats? None. You made that up. Ves Prime's crystalline form chimed anxiously. The traditional punishment clause. Doesn't exist, Vera cut her off. I checked. 3 different legal databases, 17 historical archives, and consultations with 12 different species legal experts. You committed a war crime, Counselor. You mutilated a diplomatic representative of a sovereign species. She stopped directly in front of Creeks, close enough that he could have grabbed her if he'd been brave enough to try. But here's the beautiful part, she continued. Under Section 12 of the Galactic Justice Code, the injured party has the right to demand equivalent compensation. Equivalent compensation, Zain-Ra repeated slowly. You want money? Vera's smile was sharp enough to cut steel. I want your hands. The silence that followed was absolute. All of you, she clarified helpfully. Left hands, specifically. It's only fair, don't you think? Eye for an eye, hand for a hand. Crix lunged forward with a roar of rage, but Vera was already moving. Her prosthetic hand shifted configuration again, and suddenly Crix was on the floor, writhing as neural disruptor energy coursed through his system. Councillor Crix, she said conversationally, you really should learn to control that temper. It's going to get you in trouble someday. The other council members backed away, finally understanding that they were no longer the predators in this situation. Of course, Vera continued, I'm not unreasonable. You could always choose the alternative compensation. Which is? Thax 9 asked warily. The complete dissolution of the current council structure, immediate implementation of fair representation for all galactic species, full disclosure of all illegal activities, reparations to every civilization you've cheated or oppressed, and formal recognition of humanity as an equal partner in galactic governance. She paused, letting the magnitude of her demands sink in. Oh, and personal apologies from each of you. Was delivered on your knees. Ves Prime's form flickered with outrage. Impossible. We'll never. She was cut off by the sound of marching feet. Through the chamber's main entrance came a procession of beings representing dozens of different species. Former employees, independent contractors, and representatives from smaller civilizations, all wearing identical black armbands, marked with a simple symbol, a human handprint. Meet my negotiating committee, Vera said pleasantly. Turns out when you spend decades oppressing people, they're quite eager to support someone willing to stand up to you. The mathematical precision of it was breathtaking. She hadn't just built a military force, she'd constructed a political coalition representing hundreds of worlds and billions of beings. Zain-Ra's mechanical voice was barely a whisper. This is a coup. This is justice, Vera corrected. Long overdue justice. She raised the thermal detonator, and I realized with growing horror that it wasn't a threat, it was a timer. The device was counting down. You have approximately 4 minutes to make your choice, she announced. Accept my terms, or I'll ensure that your illegal activities become public knowledge across the entire galaxy. Every hidden account, every bribe, every atrocity, all of it transmitted simultaneously to every news network, government archive and public database in known space. You're bluffing, Crix growled from the floor. Vera's prosthetic hand reconfigured once more, this time into what was clearly a communication array. Am I? Because I should mention I've already uploaded all the data to 17 different distribution networks. The only thing stopping transmission is a signal from this device. If I don't input the correct code every 4 minutes, well, she shrugged eloquently. Of course, if something were to happen to me, the timer would automatically expire. Just a safety precaution, you understand. The genius of it was undeniable. She'd made herself simultaneously vulnerable and untouchable. Kill her, and their crimes would be exposed. Let her live, and she'd dismantle everything they'd built. 2 minutes, she announced cheerfully. Thax 9 looked around at his fellow council members, seeing his own desperation reflected in their faces. They were trapped, and they all knew it. If we agree, he said slowly, you'll stop the attacks. I'll call off my people, yes, though I should mention that several independent groups have taken up the cause. Funny how inspiring it can be, watching someone stand up to bullies. 1 minute. Vesprime spoke first, her chimes sounding like funeral bells. I accept your terms. Zainra's mechanical voice followed. Accepted. Krix struggled to his feet, hatred burning in his eyes. But even he could do the math. Accepted. All eyes turned to Thax 9. The council leader who'd presided over decades of corruption and oppression now faced the choice between maintaining power and maintaining his freedom. 30 seconds. Thax 9 closed his 4 eyes and bowed his massive head. Accepted. Vera input the code with casual efficiency, and the countdown stopped. Excellent. I do so love it when reasonable beings can come to an understanding. She turned to address the assembled crowd of her supporters. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various other classifications, please prepare the new council chambers. We have a galaxy to reorganize. As the crowd dispersed to begin the massive task of restructuring galactic government, Vera walked over to where I sat in the observation deck. She'd noticed me recording everything, of course. You've been watching this whole time, she said. Not quite a question. I managed a nervous nod. For the historical record. Good, history should be accurate. She studied me with those calculating dark eyes. Tell me, Observer Kex 9, what did you learn today? I thought about that question for a long moment. What had I learned watching this impossible human dismantle 4 galactic empires with nothing but intelligence, determination, and a willingness to turn their crimes against them? That cutting off someone's hand is easy, I said finally. But cutting off their brain is impossible. Vera smiled, the first genuinely warm expression I'd ever seen from her. Very good, though I prefer to think of it differently. She held up her prosthetic hand, mechanical fingers flexing with precise control. They took my hand thinking it would cripple me. Instead, they gave me something better, something stronger. She gestured toward the chaos of reorganization happening throughout the chamber. Sometimes the best thing your enemies can do is underestimate you. It gives you room to work. 6 months later, I filed my final report on what historians now call the Kingston Reformation. The old council structure was gone, replaced by a truly representative government that included voices from every known sapient species. Trade was fairer, conflicts were resolved through mediation rather than force, and the galaxy was more peaceful than it had been in centuries. As for Vera Kingston herself, she'd been elected as the first Director General of the new Galactic Assembly. She'd kept her promise, the attacks stopped, her network of supporters became the foundation for democratic reform, and the evidence of council crimes was sealed away rather than broadcast. But the message was clear to anyone with eyes to see: mess with humanity at your own risk. They might seem small and emotional and vulnerable, but they're also clever and patient and utterly, terrifyingly thorough when someone pushes them too far. The human saying goes, don't poke the bear. But I think a better warning might be, don't cut the human's hand, she might come back with a sword. Or in Vera's case, something much more dangerous than a sword. She came back with a plan. And that, my friends, is why humans are now full partners in galactic civilization rather than supplicants begging for scraps. Because sometimes the best way to join the club is to burn it down and build a better one from the ashes. Just ask Director General Kingston. I'm sure she'd be happy to explain the finer points of revolution disguised as justice. After all, she's got time now, and both hands to work with.